Reggie, anybody else? Okay. Excuse me. Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. I know that there's a lot going on, and so we are limited in what we can say, but we do want to provide public important information. I want to thank Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations here in Phoenix, Scott Brown, for being here, as well as DPS Colonel Frank Milstead and special agents from the Utah Attorney General's office. As I speak, announcements are being made in Utah as well as Arkansas regarding the charges that have been filed in 3 different jurisdictions against Maricopa County Assessor Paul Peterson and his various associates. I'm here today to talk specifically about our actions and our indictments here in Arizona against Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Jeanette. A state grand jury has indicted Maricopa County Assessor Paul Peterson on 32 felony counts for his alleged involvement in an adoption fraud scheme. He has also been indicted by federal authorities in Arkansas and by state authorities in the state of Utah. This indictment is the result of a multi-state investigation conducted by the Department of Public Safety and Colonel Frank Milstead, as well as the National Office of Homeland Security, and the Utah Attorney General's office, the Arkansas U.S. Attorney's office, and the Access Inspector General here in Arizona. What we've alleged and what we've discovered is that this adoption fraud schemes involves pregnant women from the Marshall Islands being flown to the state of Arizona to have their babies put up for adoption. We believe that most of the children that were born here were eventually flown to other states or adopted in other states. We allege that Peterson, through his adoption agency, is accused of utilizing this adoption scheme in at least 29 births here in Arizona between November of 2015 and May of 2019. This is what we know about right now. There may indeed be more cases and more instances. County Assessor Peterson is also accused of using false information to place these Marshall Islands women on state-funded health care in order to pay for delivery costs, allegedly bilking the state out of more than $800,000. In other words, Arizona taxpayers are paying for these birth of these women in order for them to be adopted by other people. What Mr. Peterson is also accused of doing is an affront, frankly, to all Arizona taxpayers. It's unfair to the adoptive parents, and it's also fair to every hardworking Arizona taxpayer. According to our indictment, Mr. Peterson and co-defendant Linwood Jeanette purchased travel arrangements for pregnant Marshallese women to travel to here to Arizona for the sole purpose of giving birth in order to put these children up for adoption. After the women gave birth and completed the adoption, Peterson allegedly purchased travel for these birth mothers to travel to other states here in America. The women either moved to places like Arkansas, or even were moved back to the Marshall Islands. It is alleged that these Marshallese women were not residents of Arizona and at the time they gave birth. Therefore, their access applications were submitted and they were ineligible for state-funded medical benefits. Peterson and Jeanette are also charged with directing these women to fraudulently misrepresent their residency status in order to obtain those benefits. So once again, in summary, we have grand juries indicted, and we have alleged that Peterson and Jeanette on 32 counts, including 28 counts of fraudulent schemes and practices, 1 count of conspiracy, 1 count of fraudulent schemes and artifices, 1 count of theft, as well as 1 count of forgery. One of the most important things I want to get out today to emphasize that the families that adopted these children are not under investigation, and they're not the focus of our investigation. And we want anyone with any information or questions pertaining to these adoptions of these children from the Marshall Islands to please contact our office at 602-542-8888. Once again, that's one of the most important things I want to emphasize, is that these adoptions are not in jeopardy. Our focus is on the individuals that facilitated these alleged felonies. And with that, that's the basic general information on the indictment. And now I'd like to turn it over to Colonel Frank Milstead from the Arizona Department of Public Safety. Colonel.
Thank you, General. Good morning. Thank you for being here to cover this significant story. I am Colonel Frank Milstead. I'm the Director of the Arizona Department of Public Safety. I want to give you a little insight on how this all came to be and what happened. One of our very astute heads-up troopers was contacted by a friend who had gone to the law offices of Mr. Peterson to adopt a child. After the initial meeting, this particular person was concerned about the legitimacy of the process, the fees involved in the process, and talked to our detective trooper by the name of Sam Hunt. Sam was part of a task force that worked with Homeland Security Investigations, Phoenix PD, and the Arizona Department of Public Safety. They started looking into this adoption process back in December of 18, and it led us to the culmination of where we are today. Last night, prior to the arrest, or right at the time we arrested Mr. Peterson, we executed a number of search warrants here in the Valley. And at one of the locations where the search warrant was executed, there were 8 additional Marshallese women there who were all pregnant at the time. It is alleged that Mr. Peterson would charge about $35,000 for you to adopt a child from his agency. He would pay these Marshallese women around $10,000 on some occasions, but then siphon money off the top of that for health care, for housing, transportation, and other things. And then Miss Jeanette was also part of this scheme where she would help them fill out fraudulent paperwork for access so they could deliver the baby on state funds. That is really kind of the basis of the story. I'll answer some questions here at the end, but I'm going to let Special Agent from the AG's office in Utah, Agent Call, to have the next part of this. Thank you.
My name is Brendan Call, Section Chief with the Utah Attorney General's Office Investigations Division. I just want to say thank you to the Arizona AG and Arizona DPS for having us down here. It's been a great partnership between their agencies and our agency, and then the U.S. Attorney's Office in Arkansas. It's been a team effort in getting these charges, sharing information, and working together to, again, get charges here in Arizona, the 11 counts that we charged Peterson with up in Utah, and then also the federal charges in Arkansas. If you have any questions at the end, I can also answer those. But again, thank you to Arizona for having us to be able to assist last night with the warrants and to be here as part of this.
Thank you all again. We are a little limited of what we can say. And once again, these are all just accusations at this point. But just to echo what the folks from Utah said, this really is a collaborative effort, and I want to thank again the Department of Public Safety for all their hard work in investigating this case, all the hard work that our prosecutors have put in to get these indictments. And as I mentioned, there are literally federal indictments and indictments in other states. So this was a multi-jurisdiction investigation. It's very significant, and Mr. Peterson is facing felony counts in 3 different jurisdictions at this point. So if anyone else has any questions, we may be able to answer.
The families are not under investigation, but since these adoptions were allegedly performed illegally, will those children still remain with those families? Many of them have been there, I guess, since 2015, or will they be taken away?
Yeah, I want to make sure that's one of the things that we're want to be very clear on. One of the reasons why we're having this press conference today, because I want to put at ease those families. The people that adopted these children are not the focus of the investigation. What these allegations involve is what Mr. Peterson and Ms. Jeanette did is they allegedly violated the law, and they violated the state law by misusing state resources. That is, by making those misrepresentations as to the residency status of these women so they could give birth at taxpayer expense. So that's the focus of the criminal investigation, where the actions of Mr. Peterson and Mrs. Jeanette in bringing these women here, and then what they did with the women after they had given birth. So the focus is not on any of those people that adopted the children. And once again, if people have any questions, they can call our office. We've set up a hotline, 602-542-8888.
Colonel Mills you said that there were 8 women, Marshallese women, found last night as search warrants were executed. Where are they now?
I do not have the answer to where those women are now. I am not aware of that they've been moved or transported or anything. Just for the edification of the crowd, The Republic of the Marshall Islands has an agreement with the United States that people from the Marshall Islands can come and go in the U.S., stay in the U.S., and live here without restrictions on time because of a compact that they have with the United States of America. They are not a territory. It is just an association agreement with America that these people that live there can come and go as they desire. So they're not here illegally. There's no reason for them to leave. The only issue is they're not allowed to do the adoption process here in the U.S. That's part of the compact.
Were they detained?
There's no charges filed against them. There's no reason to detain them.
Are any of the women who are brought here by Mr. Peterson under investigation?
The best that I know of today, where we are with the investigation, none of those women have committed any crimes.
Do we know how many women? I know that you guys mentioned 29 here in Arizona, and I believe I read 40 in Utah. Do you know the total?
AG, do you know that number?
Well, I mean, our focus obviously here in Arizona is on these the women and the births here that happened in Arizona. As you said, it's we believe there's 29 here. In Utah, I think they've alleged, once again, I don't want to talk about their indictment, but I think it is up to 40. So, I mean, obviously this involves dozens and dozens of live births here in the United States. But once again, our focus is on not the adoptions and where the kids are. Our focus is on what Mr. Peterson and what Miss Jeanette did in the scheme they had in order to allegedly deprive Arizona taxpayers of their hardworking tax dollars by having these people's health care paid for by the state of Arizona.
How many of those adopted children stayed in Arizona? How many of them are here? You said some of them went out of state, but some of them, how many of them are here?
Once again, these are all allegations. Without getting specifics, I would say that most of the children and most of the women are out of state, and most of the adoptions, or excuse me, vast majority of the adoptions are out of state.
Did
In
you
your
pursue?
investigation, have you found that Peterson was targeting people in the LDS community specifically to adopt these babies?
I don't know, Frank, do you guys want to talk about the investigation? But I mean,
Do you know the answer to that, Ken? Were these primarily LDS women?
The families who were adopting the children?
well, I guess the answer to that is, I mean, it's really irrelevant. No, I mean that wasn't the focus of the investigation. The focus of the investigation is the fact, regardless of where these women came from, that there was misrepresentations as to their resident status, and that they were getting, the births were being done here at taxpayer expense, and then the women would go out of state and the kids would be adopted elsewhere.
Did
And
your
is there potential for more charges to be added here? I know he's being charged with human smuggling and sale of a child in Utah. Is there potential that those could be tacked on here in Arizona?
I would say yes. We expect to find out that there are additional charges that the Department of Public Safety would hand over to the AG's office for potential prosecution.
What is Ms. Jeanette's connection with Mr. Peterson? What does she do? What's her background?
They're associates in this criminal conspiracy. That's all that I can release at this time.
Is she Marshallese?
I believe she is Marshallese, yes.
Yeah, and she's actually been was indicted by our office on charges related to income tax charges. So.
To be clear, the families that adopted these children are not under investigation, but what will happen to the kids who have been adopted or are in the process of being adopted?
Well, once again, our focus is on these two individuals, and we're not going to go back. Like, anyone who's adopted a kid has nothing to worry about. That's really what I really want to emphasize here today, that no one's going to go back and redo adoptions or any of that kind of stuff. Our focus is on the individuals, these two specific individuals who have allegedly abused the system and ripped off Arizona taxpayers.
Is there any evidence that Assessor's office resources were used as part of this scheme?
Not at this time. I mean, really, like I said, we're limited because of where we're at and procedurally in this process as to what we can and can't say. You obviously have copies of the indictments are available. The Form 4 from the booking is available, so you can maybe glean some of that information from that. But once again, we're a little limited as to what we may or may not be able to say at this point.
And just as a follow-up, his business was an adoption attorney outside of being a county assessor. So that was he was a lawyer that did adoptions. He had an adoption service business. So,
Did he say anything to you last night when he was arrested?
he invoked his right to remain silent.
Any idea how much state money in total was used throughout this scheme?
Right now, they're alleging just over $800,000. We believe that number will increase.
To clarify the 8 women from last night, the pregnant women, they will no longer be able to go through with their adoption?
That is yet to be determined, ma'am.
What was the condition of the house they were found in?
The property belonged to Mr. Peterson, and I am not educated on the condition of the home.
Were the women instructed to lie?
I can't answer that.
I think we're good at this point, because everything's in
I
the
think it's gonna be
investigation.
the location of the home, where was it?
We can follow up with you.
We'll have to, yeah, I don't have that off the top of my head, but we can get somebody to get that to you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much again, thank you.
The attorney at the initial appearance yesterday or last night said something about a conflict of interest with your office because of civil litigation. Is there anything, can you respond to that? Or
I don't know, maybe you could elaborate on the question?
what's that?
Can you, what happened?
He apparently said that the initial appearance that there's a conflict of interest because of civil litigation between the AG and Peterson. Is that?
Oh, I mean, I think that if that's the best as a defense attorney's got, he probably should get another lawyer. No, there's not any conflicts. Obviously, this office is charged with enforcing both, criminal law and civil law, and if someone's alleged to have committed a crime, we're going to prosecute him. And, frankly, I think that's a little bit insult. Oh gosh, I was going to say all these people around me. Apparently, everyone left. But that's a little bit insulting to the Office of Homeland Security. That's a little bit insulting to the Arkansas U.S. Attorney's Office. It's insulting to the Utah AG's office. It's insulting to Colonel Milstead and the Department of Public Safety, because if any of that had any basis in reality, you're basically saying that there's some multi-jurisdictional conspiracy against him, and that's a joke. It's not true. So, all right. Thank you very much. Thanks.